Good morning. This is Talking Devils, your favourite Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Barton. Delighted to be joined in this weekend preview by two former Manchester United youth players, Phil Marsh and Lee Lawrence. Phil, how are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, Wayne. Obviously, had a little bit of bad news in terms of my football in the last couple of days. Had a bit of trouble with an injury that I was suffering through with pre-season. Went for a little X-ray just to sort of double check and peace of mind, and they found a small fracture in the side of my foot. So that's obviously going to keep me out for a while. But then I've also found out that I've got a snap screw in the bottom of my leg as well from when I broke my leg. So sounds a lot worse than it probably is. But yeah, just going to obviously have to have a bit of time off and just waiting to hear back now from the specialist in regards to, how we go forward and what the plan is to sort of get myself back to, where I need to be. But yeah, other than that, mate, everything's going really well. Just having a bit of time off. Obviously, 6 weeks holidays for me off school, so just enjoying a bit of time with the family and a bit of time to sort of wind down. But always busy with stuff to do in the house and stuff like that. So yeah, looking forward to the start of the football. Obviously, that's been a big miss for me. I've been waiting for some proper football. So yeah, looking forward to the start of the season.
Yeah, best 2 days of the season at the minute until
Yeah.
we kick off. We've got all the hope until Sunday afternoon,
Yeah.
at which point
See how everyone else gets on first, and then might make us feel a little bit better.
Yeah, well, anyone who knows anything about your career, Phil, will know you've got tremendous fighting spirit and you've overcome worse in your life and career. So I'm sure you'll be back to banging some goals very shortly. Well, shortly enough. I'm not going to make any predictions. I'm not your doctor. Also joined by Lee Lawrence. Lee, how are you doing, mate? How's your summer been?
All good, mate. Yeah, all good. We all look like we've not got a job, to be honest, don't we, doing it at this time in the morning on a Friday? But it's the one day, really, and I don't know how long I've had a day off today. So fortunately, we've been able to get the podcast done this morning because we know Phil's off to Old Trafford watching the cricket. Life of luxury now after his injury. So just nice to do it in the morning and not the evening. So glad, like Phil said, that the Premier League's back. With the women's football, it's been fantastic to watch. It probably kept us all sane until the Premier League's come back on. You know what I mean? So I'm just glad that it's back, mate. Looking forward to this weekend, watching the games, and we'll see how we pan out. Still not overly optimistic about the season, but I'm sure we'll dig into it. New manager, new beginnings, new philosophies. Hopefully, if we don't see a better placement in the league this year, hopefully we'll see a bit more fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Keane normally hosts the show. He's not here today. He's not very well. But we obviously send our well wishes to Keane. And if you're watching, get well soon, mate. We'll be back next week.
Yeah.
So I can watch because I enjoy watching this rather than hosting it. I'll tell you. I always enjoy talking football with you guys, but I also enjoy watching and joining the conversation as well. So if you're watching, please like and subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching live on Facebook, feel free, and on YouTube as well, feel free to get your questions in and comments in, and we'll get to as many as we can. If you're watching the replay as well, please feel free to say hello, because we still comment and reply to the comments that we get. And if you're listening back on the audio podcast, please be sure to subscribe and review on the platform you're listening on. We got up to 4,000 subscribers yesterday, which is an amazing achievement. So thank you to everyone who's supported the channel. We keep saying it all the time, we were the number one independent rated podcast United last season. So it means a lot that everyone keeps watching and listening and enjoys what we're doing. Said we try and be non-controversial. We try and just be honest and give the insight of the former players as well as our own. We're just really privileged to have you guys spending time with us and talking football with us. So we're obviously going to preview United versus Brighton. That's what we're going to get into, discuss some of the summer. And obviously, we are at this point of the season where the Premier League starts today. We've got 48 hours where we can dream that we're going to win the league before Sunday hits us with the painful reality. But I wanted to start by really going optimistic and going straight back to the best opening day memories that we've got of Premier League history for United. So I conducted a little bit of a shortlist, and I put it to the lads earlier. And I mean, if you're listening back, if you're watching on the comment, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to get your comments in on this one to talk about what your favourite opening day was. Your favourite, even if you're watching on Twitter. I know we can't get the comments on Twitter, but feel free to join in the Twitter feed with the comments of what your favourite opening day win was for United. And I actually put a list of 6 to you guys, and 2 of them didn't actually include wins. The first one that I put in was Villa 95, where we lost 3-1. Nobody likes to remember defeats, but everyone remembers that game because of the famous "you can't win anything with kids" after. And the 2-2 game that I had with that I had on the list with Leicester in 1998, which was the first game after the World Cup, where David Beckham scored in the last minute with a free kick. In fact, all of these games, the first 3 games I've got on the list, were all remembered for David Beckham screamers. And it's the middle one, Wimbledon 96, which you guys have picked as your favourites. Or you both picked it as your favourite opening day win. Lee, I'll come to you first on this. Really, the game is memorable for David Beckham's goal from the halfway line. So everyone who's associated with United has different memories of this because it was such a symbolic goal. It was way before the time of social media. It was the kind of thing where they were talking about it on the news, so everyone was going to have to tune in to Match of the Day of the Night to watch it. Talk me through your memories of that and why that stands out as your favourite opening day win.
Yeah, like we said, we had a chat just before we come on screen in our little group about, like you said, the topic of the best opening game with United, and it's just the one what has always stuck in my head. I signed my first contract with United, I think it was 92-93 season, at 9 years old. And what they used to do when we was training up at the Cliffs or at Littleton Road or wherever we was training, the young lads who was breaking into the first team used to come and put sessions on for us, half an hour here, an hour there. It was part of the material and the build-up then at United. And one of my most vivid memories of David Beckham was he used to come and put quite a lot of sessions on for us as a young lad just breaking into the first team. And when he scored that goal from the halfway line, it was just wow. He was our coach, basically, for a couple of sessions the week before. He's just done that, and now he's on the biggest stage as a young up and coming footballer. And to score a goal, which I'm sure for most people is, it'll be engraved in their mind as one of the best Premier League goals ever. That's why it sticks so vividly in my memory that as a young kid at 9 years old, one of the up and coming stars scored that goal, and it's one of the memories I'll have for a lifetime kind of thing. But just going off that and going on to another season, and I know this sounds silly because it's probably our worst season in Premier League history, but the 5-1 against Leeds, I remember, I think it was in the podcast, we were so optimistic that season. We just signed Varane, we had Ronaldo back, Bruno scored an hat-trick, Pogba looked like he was on fire. I think we was all optimistic it was going to win the league, so that as an opening day game and the enthusiasm what we showed on the podcast and the belief we actually had in the squad, that's, I know it's a bit of a curveball because of the position we finished, but that's another one where if we just going on the opening days, it'll be one of my favourite opening day matches with what sticks in recent memories.
No, absolutely, and not just because of that, because of the fact that fans were back filling the stadium for the first time for a couple of years, and it did really have this. I didn't go to Leeds, but I went to Newcastle a couple of weeks. Obviously, Ronaldo's first game, and there was this sense of enthusiasm that hadn't been around the club for such a long time. Phil, obviously, you've picked Beckham, Wimbledon '96, and I guess your memories are going to be fairly similar, right? Of like being around the club. So talk to me about this, because you've got a period. I mean, this is the most famous goal possibly in Premier League history, but certainly of that decade. It absolutely changed the face of the Premier League that something like that could happen, that he scored a goal like that. And for the 4 years before that, Cantona was the main man, right? Cantona was the one who sort of took United. It made them the headline team. Everything that Cantona did was headline news. And this was the first time since Cantona arrived that really I know Giggs had been a top player, but this is the first time someone had done something that really resonated around the world. Beckham had made himself a global superstar from the minute he kicked that ball into the net. And what was it like as a local lad watching someone who's come through the United youth system score a goal like that? That, I mean, he's basically transforming the entire dynamic of what you're all following as United players. It's transformed the entire expectation, right? Does that scare you a little bit, or does it make you more eager to get your chance when it comes around?
Yeah, obviously, similar to Lee, I think 95, 96 was when I sort of joined the club. So obviously coming into the club and, at that period with a lot of the young lads trying to break into the first team, and then Beckham obviously scoring that goal, it was incredible. Obviously for him, I think it sort of put his name out there. Obviously such an iconic goal. It's going to be seen worldwide. And I think, that sort of put Manchester United on the map even more so across the world. And for us young lads looking up to players like that, as Lee said, sometimes they'd come and do some sessions so you can see it and you can obviously like interact with them, and then you're actually watching them do that kind of thing on the big stage. It's fantastic for young lads who are trying to aspire to be, the next players that are coming through who want to try and break into that first team, and it gives you that sense of, well, if he can do it and sort of, he's doing exactly the same journey that we're on, then it gives us that opportunity and that hope that we can eventually follow in the footsteps. But no, I think, obviously for Beckham, I think he obviously went on then after that goal, probably all eyes are going to be on him for quite a while, and sort of understandably so after scoring such a technically difficult goal. And as I say, for me as a young kid, I'd never seen a goal that was scored like that. I mean, there's probably been goals similar to that, or he probably wasn't the first person to ever score from the halfway line. But I think the way he did it, and obviously the technical difficulty and the awareness that you've got to have to be able to sort of pull off something like that, and the audacity really to even attempt it is hats off. And obviously his career, everybody knows David Beckham. He's a world superstar, and I think that was the moment where it sort of kick-started his career. So it was brilliant to be at the club at that point. Obviously the young lads came in, they all got the opportunity when people were writing them off, and it was so good to see that they proved everybody wrong, and it was the sort of Man United way to trust in the youth and give everybody an opportunity. If you're good enough, it doesn't matter how young you are, you can be playing in that first team and you can be producing the goods like they did.
Yeah, it's interesting, the story, the origin of Beckham scoring from the halfway line. I can't remember exactly the exact month or year when it happened, but I'm going off a story that came up for the book that I wrote on David Beckham a few years ago. So Kevin Pilkington was telling me a story when they were playing, I think it was Bury at Littleton Road, and he tried to score goals like that before. He was always trying it, and it came off in one game. But the reason why he tried it in this particular game is that on the bus, it can't have been. The story that Kevin tells is that they were on the team bus before, and it might have been maybe the week before, it might have been like the days before for something. They're on the team bus and the video was playing, so it might have been Grandstand or something. Where they would show stuff that had happened in the world of sport, and someone in Spain had scored from the halfway line. Obviously, these kind of things, you didn't always see them back home, but obviously because that was scored from the halfway line, it must have made, again, headlines around the world, and it was shown on Grandstand. And then within a week, Beckham was scoring one against Bury, and obviously kept that in his mind. Jordi Cruyff had tried to score one like 5 minutes earlier from about 45 yards, and I think that's probably what planted the seed for Beckham to try it. But it definitely changed his entire career from that moment, because he was an England regular. He was never dropped after that, and I mean, Spice Boy and all that sort of stuff, all of that followed in that season because of, he just basically walked into that that headline space that Cantona was going to vacate at the end of the season, and never gave it up until, well, probably hasn't still given it up. He's still a headline actor, isn't he? Keane's put in a comment in the thing, which would have been my choice as well, beating Fulham 5-1 in 2006 with Rooney and Ronaldo shutting up the media and tearing Fulham apart. Everyone remembers that season. The Summers World Cup was Rooney and Ronaldo having a bit of an issue with each other. Rooney coming to the tournament struggling with an injury. He was sent off against Portugal. Ronaldo with the wink and everything like that. There was the rumour that Ronaldo was going to be sold. Ferguson just said that's definitely not going to happen. And on the first day of the season, in that first half, they were unbelievable, and they were always linking up with each other. They showed that everything was fine between them. Lee, you're absolutely right with the 5-1 against Leeds last time round, and also can't forget Bolton in 2003, where Ronaldo came off the bench to make his debut. Nobody knew what to expect. Why have they given this kid the number 7 shirt? You guys have already talked about your early impressions with Ronaldo last season on pod when he first came back. So you'd already seen a little bit of him, but he's still only been at the club for a couple of days, and I don't think anyone knew that he could do something like that.
No, I'll be honest with you too, Wayne. Garnacho's performance in the last game reminded me a little of a young Ronaldo, as in fearless. Not scared of the occasion, took it in his stride, looked like he was playing every week for the 23s. I'm getting a little bit excited watching him the other day. I think it could be the next big thing. Hopefully, if he gets his head down and keeps his nut down, I think he could show in shades of what Ronaldo showed early doors.
Yeah. No, yeah, he was fantastic at the weekend game, and that's the big thing that you look for in the youngsters when they break into the first team, is that composure, isn't it? Are they comfortable like actually taking the game? Are they proactive with it, or are they looking for the safe pass? Which again is it's not a criticism. You're assessing that player's confidence level to break into the side, and sometimes they do take the safe pass, and you can praise that as well and say it's good economy of possession, it's good responsibility, but his dribbling ability, someone likened him to Kanchelskis, and I see where they're coming from in that he doesn't release the ball when he dribbles. Even when someone goes in and they tackle him, he's still able to keep hold of the ball after that. And yeah, I mean, he's certainly a player that you would hope is being kept around the club. And from everything that Ten Hag has said, it looks like he's going to. Keane says he's more like Eden Hazard. Yeah, that's very good. It's a very, very good call. He's got that low centre of gravity, and he keeps hold of the ball in that way. Yeah. Keane mentions about Zidane Iqbal, really impressed him with composure in the middle. Yes, absolutely. I want to talk about first, before we move on to the transfers, ins and outs, and whether or not Ten Hag has been put in a good position to start the Premier League season. Dean Henderson's comments. He's gone out on loan. So I want to talk really about Dean Henderson and Elanga possibly going out on loan. Dean Henderson has gone out on loan. It is still a loan move, right? He's only gone to Forest on loan. And he talks about, he didn't want, and we all know, we've seen these comments. I don't know if you guys have actually seen him, but he's actually said the words. We've seen him say the words, so we can interpret the way that he said them, the way that they've been delivered. He's talked about, he wanted to make sure that he moved before Ten Hag got the chance to see him, because he'd want to keep me, and I don't want to waste another year of my career. I'm just wondering from your guys' perspective. Obviously, it's frustrating. He's a great goalkeeper. He's got a lot of talent in there. A little bit of me finds that a little bit disrespectful to De Gea, because De Gea is still a top-class goalkeeper. It's all right having confidence in your ability, but you don't have a God-given right to play any game of football. You're still bound by what the manager thinks, and they can prefer someone who's not better than you. I personally think De Gea is better than Henderson, but even accounting for his faults. But it's for a player who's still contracted to the club. First of all, I found that quite surprising, and second of all, for a player who he's not guaranteed to leave, he's still got to come back at some point and sort out his future. It just seemed baffling to me. Phil, where did you stand on this? Look, he's a great goalkeeper. He's got a lot of confidence. Where did you stand on what he said?
I think obviously there's two ways of looking at this sort of scenario for me, and I think obviously from Dean Henderson's perspective, obviously he went out on loan to Sheffield United a few seasons ago. He had a great season there. He came back to the club probably expecting, maybe not to be starting every game, but he's probably been told, listen, you've done really well. We want you back. You and De Gea are sort of there now to fight for that number 1 shirt. And for whatever reason, he's never really got given that opportunity to have a long run in the team. So I can understand his frustration, and I can understand from his point of view that it's not great that he's, just sat on the bench and he's playing the odd game here and there. But as you say then, the comments that he said as he's still contracted by Man United, he's still getting his wages paid by Man United. He's gone on loan to Forest now to sort of, try and get regular game time, which is fine. But I do agree, and I think the comments that he has made are very disrespectful and probably a little bit of sour grapes, really, because if you look at, obviously, De Gea's performances last year, he was one of our players of the season. So I think, obviously, that decision has been proven right, that De Gea was the number 1. And, last year he did really well for me. It was probably one of his better seasons in more recent times. I think he's not been at his best in the last sort of 3 or 4 years from what we was grown to expect from him. But I think last season he sort of turned the corner and started, producing some of the stuff that we know he can do. So yeah, it's a strange situation. I think, obviously this sort of frustration levels from him have just been building up, and because he's finally now gone to Forest and he's feeling like he's going to play. I think that's just all come out in that interview. Obviously, we don't know what's been said behind the scenes, whether he has been promised, game time or whatever. But even if he has, as a professional footballer, sometimes that's what you've got to deal with, and that's what happens. You can't just throw the toys out the pram. You've just got to keep working hard in training and being professional. And if you do get the opportunity, you've got to try and grab it with both hands. For a goalkeeper, that's literally what you've got to do. You've got to take it and try and keep that number 1 spot. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to do that at United. So yeah, we'll just have to see how he gets on. Obviously, he'll probably play a majority of the games for Forest. If he has a good season and comes back, will the comments now have already he might have to, move on after this, because I can't really see a comeback after the way he's been and what he said. Because I think he's lost a lot of respect from fans and from, probably his peers at the club.
Yeah, it is a difficult one, isn't it, Lee? Because, De Gea is still coming towards the end of his career. He's 31, 32, so he's still probably got 2 or 3 years. It's that catch-22 situation. Is he close to the end? Can he still go another 3 years? And you can sort of see Henderson's frustration with that, but he is burning his bridges. Keane says he can see where he's coming from because Solskjaer gave him false promises when he signed the new deal. But then again, yes, that's true, but he got COVID and, he had to play De Gea from the start. And Solskjaer, if anything, for all of his faults, and he had many, he did give the player a chance to prove himself, and De Gea never disproved himself after he was in the side. So you're not just going to drop him for the sake of it. Where do you stand on it? Because it's a sensitive one. It's a very difficult thing. Like Phil says, is right and wrong on both sides.
Yeah, I'm a massive believer myself. Like you just said, you should play not by your name, but by what you do on the pitch. Play on merit. And like I said, De Gea, when he come in, for me, he was undroppable. Yeah, he does make the odd few mistakes, but how many times last season did we say where would we have been without Ronaldo and De Gea? They was our 2 best players, in my opinion, anyway. So yeah, I can completely understand that the frustration about if he has been told, he was going to come back and he was going to be number 1. Obviously, he's going to be trying to push for an England call up, so he wants to be playing regular. Completely understand where he's coming from on that, but I'm a massive believer in if you do go out on loan, you don't disrespect your parent club. Don't use your mouth to vent your frustrations. The best way of doing it is just go on loan, keep quiet in the media, and if you do believe in your own ability that much, let your ability show your permanent club when you come back that they've made a mistake by sending you out on loan, and when you do come back, make sure you get that number 1 spot. Don't disrespect them by venting silly stuff. What could potentially harm your position in one of the biggest club in the world when you come back being the number one goalkeeper for many, many years, to come. That's just how I see football. There's so many times last year that we all got frustrated with, like to Lingard and people like that who was using the mouse too much, and it's changed from when we used to play. They get a lot. We mentioned anything like that under Sir Alex Ferguson, and we knew the consequences. It's it's no secret. We'd have been out the club, and that didn't matter who you was, from being a young lad to being the best. You started disrespecting the club and disrespecting the manager's decisions. You would have consequently you would have been gone, whether it be on loan or you would have been gone fully. They get too much freedom these days to talk in the press about the actual feelings, where, like I said, just believe in your own ability and show the manager and show the club that they've made a mistake and they should have put you in.
Yeah.
I think just on that way, and I think nowadays when you look at it, the player power is ridiculous, because as Lee just said, when we was at the club, if there was any grumblings or any players who were unhappy or whatever, the dressing room wouldn't allow it to come out of that dressing room, or people like Roy Keane and whoever, the big senior characters would deal with that in house, and it would never come out into the press. Whereas nowadays it's not just Man United, it's loads of different clubs across Europe and across the world. The freedom of speech now, they can come out and say whatever they want. They don't respect the club. They just want to do things for themselves because of all this social media influencing and all this kind of thing, and it's gone sort of in a completely different direction to what myself and Lee and players who played sort of 15, 20 years ago. It's just a crazy media frenzy now, with everything and every little detail that gets out there, and it's sort of changed for the worse, if I'm being honest. But yeah.
Another player who's not gone out on loan, but there is talk that he might, is Elanga. Now he played 27 games last season. There's still a couple of doubts in the front line as we start the season. Ronaldo's future, Martial and Sancho with the fitness in the first few games. Where they're talking about him possibly going on loan, I'm interested to know what you guys would do in his position, because there's still obviously this prevailing suggestion that he's not really of the top quality. There's a lot of concerns about his first touch and everything like that. And then you've got the other side of the argument, which is he's had his opportunity. He's had 27 games. He's been around the pre-season. He's in the thoughts of the new manager. If he goes, he's out of sight, out of mind. And then if he comes back and, he really doesn't develop in the same kind of way, except, there are certain things that you both know as professionals. You can develop your technique so far, and he doesn't, I think he could improve with experience, don't get me wrong, and he could improve to find his place in this side and be a better player in this team. My concern is that if he goes on loan, because he's not really top drawer, he loses that momentum. And he comes back and he's all completely lost his place in the squad, and his future's basically over at the club. In his position, because everyone's still saying that United need another striker. You would think that, let's presume Ronaldo stays. I know we'll talk about him in a minute. We've got a few comments in the comments about him. But assuming Ronaldo stays, and you've got Martial, Rashford, Sancho, Garnacho maybe now fighting for a space in that front line, chances will be fairly limited. He'll be a squad player. Do you take a loan to develop maybe as a first team player in a lower reaching Premier League club or an higher reaching Championship club, or do you stick around and try and benefit from the momentum that you've already got? Lee, in his position, if the opportunity came up for a loan, what would you do?
I'm not sure. The reason I'm saying I'm not sure is because we're still all unsure about the Cristiano situation, which obviously we're going to come on to. I think if Ronaldo leaves and we don't sign another striker in the window, we are going to be quite thin, because the only real out-and-out striker we're going to have is Martial, and we know he's injury prone and we know he blows hot and cold. little bit worrying for me at the moment about the situation we've got, that it's not been sorted out quicker than it already has. So that's where it becomes hard and a bit technical for me. I think, like I say, if Ronaldo does stay, we have got quite a decent, set of lads who can fulfil different roles up there. And if that's the case, then yeah, if I was a Langer, I'd probably have a look at developing myself at another club. I'd want to sign for another Premier League club. Just give me 2 seconds.
Phil, what would you do?
I'm back.
Please back. Okay.
The dog just nearly threw a wobbler. Sorry. So yeah, if that was the case, I'd probably look at going to a lower Premier League club or even a mid-table Premier League club. He's got what we seen when he first come onto the scene. And this is what I hate. What we do as fans, we bring a young lad in, and automatically he has a couple of good games, and we put him on a pedestal here. It's not fair on the lads. They come in raw. They come in. No one knows much about them and how they play. And inevitably they do quite well. And then the more games they get, people become familiar with the game style and the play, and they get knocked down off the pedestal, off the fans a hell of a lot. Not just a bit. And that's surely, like Phil just mentioned, to this day and age with social media and how much they're out in the spotlight, that must knock the confidence as a young lad so much. And it's a crying shame, really. But yeah, for me, he's got all the raw talent, so he's got the ability to be a top forward player. I'd probably let him go and develop elsewhere and see what they can get out of a season out of him somewhere else.
Yeah. What would you do, Phil? I mean, 27 games is nothing to be sniffed at in the first team. You've had that opportunity. You're in this position where if you're out of the squad, you're potentially out of the manager's eyes, and it's a new manager as well. You've got other contenders in these wide roles, which Langer likes to play in. He's not really probably the likelihood is he's not going to make a central striker. What would you do in that situation? It's really tricky, I think. But,
I think from a personal point of view, if I'm Anthony Langer, I want to be playing football. I need to be playing football regular, week in, week out. Now, when I look at the players that we've got in the positions that he's been playing in at this moment in time, for me, I actually think he's probably third, fourth choice. So as a player, and for me personally, I'd be saying, right, if I'm not going to be playing regular football, I want to, go somewhere else, and I want to try and make sure I can play at a decent level. I want to play regular games. I'm at an age now where I'm still learning, but I need to still be playing in order to do that. Because I think last year, it was an awkward situation. Like, this is not me having a pop at Anthony Langer by any stretch of the imagination, but I think last year, fans and maybe some of the media got a little bit overexcited with him because of how poor he was last year.
Yeah.
And the fact that he just came in and gave a little bit of effort, and he had that spark, and he was trying to lift the crowd, and he just was doing the basic stuff, really, what you'd expect from all the other players. But because they weren't doing it and he was, I think everybody else sort of got a little bit carried away, maybe with what he was about and where he was at this moment in time in his career. But to be fair, every time he plays, you can't knock his work rate. You can't, ever doubt his passion and his desire. I just actually feel at this moment in time, when you look at the players around him, and probably at this moment in time, is he going to be playing regular football at Man United after what we've seen sort of in pre-season, and with the players that we've got back fit now and who look, a lot sharper and fitter, and have a new lease of life? Probably not. So for me, if I'm Anthony Langer, I'm saying, right, send me out on loan to a Bournemouth, or someone who's in the Premier League, who's want to be playing regular football, and I can try and prove myself and sort of come back in 6 months, 12 months time with another year's experience of playing Premier League football, and also hopefully I've done well. I've shown you what you've been missing or what I can do, and now I'm ready to fight for that position and come back, and hopefully that'll be where we are in sort of 12 months' time with him, because I do think he's got ability. As Lee said, he is still a little bit raw. He is still rough around the edges a little bit, but as you know, you only get better and you only improve by playing regular football, making mistakes, learning from it, and just trying to sort of, keep working hard, which he does. You can see from the kind of person and the kind of lad he is, he's got that work ethic and desire to improve. I've seen loads of stuff on social media of him in the gym and he looks absolutely, ripped. So he's doing all the right things, just needs to keep playing and keep his head down. And I'm sure he'll be back and in the sort of plans moving forward.
Yeah, Keane says, I think he should go on loan. If he has a Lingard-esque season on loan, it could benefit him. Bournemouth under Parker could be a shout. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we'll talk about the club's transfer activity. We've got a couple of comments in on Ronaldo. Ronaldo should get out of United, says Rocksteady. He's killed off his legacy at the club now. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I can understand why he's upset a lot of people. Richard says Ronnie should have done all his talking and posturing behind closed doors, not on the pitch. Makes him look petulant. So, lads, I think I'm going to try and roll it up into a ball where we talk about Ronaldo, De Jong, the general transfer activity. I know that you talked generally about the transfers with Keane as well on last week's pod, so we don't need to retrack a lot of those steps. But I am interested, we're on the eve of the Premier League season. I personally think, and I'm not trying to lead you into any answers, I'm just giving my opinion on this. I think that, Ten Hag's obviously given his list of transfers. Ronaldo, his own future would have influenced a lot of that. And I don't think that before the club went to the Far East and to Australia that they were expecting that he was going to drop this bombshell on them, that he was going to leave. They were obviously planning for other areas. I think that they set the stall out quite early to make De Jong the primary target. I think the club have been fairly consistent in the way that they've chased that for him. I think that's very much led by Ten Hag. He said that he wants the player. A lot of people are coming out and complaining that we haven't said that we want a backup player for De Jong. But I think it's such a precarious situation. We don't have really a lot to offer. We're not in a strong bargaining position apart from money. We can't offer him Champions League football. So the best way to appeal to him is to really appeal to his ego, especially if he's going to leave the club that he's always supported, which is Barcelona. You've got to really say that this team is going to be built around him, which Ten Hag has tried to do. So it doesn't make any sense in saying that we have an alternative lined up, or at least briefing that to the press, because it's going to undermine our own position in that game. Nonetheless, people are still complaining that it's dragged on this long. And apparently the club set a deadline earlier in the week for De Jong. They said, we'll pay a certain amount of what is owed in terms of a signing on fee. Barcelona have sort of they've held out firm, thinking that they can play. They've pulled all these levers or whatever, so they think that they can just hold on and really make United pay the full amount. Chelsea are being used as a name to try and force United's hand with that. And it is all really revolving around these two players. And you mentioned it earlier, Lee, about the concern if Ronaldo goes that United are light in that area. The consequential argument is, do you build a team around Ronaldo who's not really mobile? And we saw under Rangnick, he can press. There's no doubt in his work rate. If he can see that there's goals in there, he's not going to sniff up the goals. So if that means working, he's not shy of working hard. But you can also see why Ronaldo conflicts with what Ten Hag is trying to build in the system when you look at the interplay that you've seen from Martial and Rashford in pre-season. So it's a tough one. I guess the major question is, do you think that the club have been fair with Ten Hag? Do you think that it's a transfer policy that's been led by Ten Hag in the pre-season? Do you think that they've been right to push? I mean, I think that their hands are tied a little bit with what Ronaldo's dictating with the transfer. I think they're trying to be fair and say if an offer comes in, it can go, but they haven't had a proper offer in yet. But they are still pushing for De Jong, and everything seems to be held around him. What is your assessment, Lee? I'll come to you first on this, on how the club have handled the bigger part of the transfer structure. Because obviously Malacia, Martinez, Eriksen, fairly sensible transfers. A lot seems to be riding on Ronaldo and De Jong. And how do you think the club are handling that?
It's been a conflicting one for me. Don't get me wrong. I think what I've seen of Malakia, we knew what we was going to get from Eriksen. By the way, I think Eriksen is a fantastic signing. I really, really do think he's going to be one of the surprises of the season. I think he's going to be outstanding for us. I've always thought he was an outstanding player anyway. Watched him quite a few times at Brentford, what he did against us. When he played against us, he absolutely battered our midfield. I think it's an excellent signing. Martinez too. I think all three signings, what we've done, are going to strengthen our squad. And going to make us a better team. Is it going to push us on much more in the league? If we only get no more signings, we only get these, I would say possibly not. I think we needed another 2 to 3, world class. Well, not even world class, but good signings. What would fit into the squad to push us up the league. The De Jong situation, I'll be quite honest, it's doing me head in. If I'm being 100% honest with you, I think it would be a great signing. I think we've pursued it miles too long. I understand there's a lot of complications with the money what's owed, and De Jong's club at heart is Barcelona and all this, that and the other. But at the end of the day, we want to, as a club, move on and get to where we need to be as soon as possible. We need to be signing players this season which will take us up to the next step. I'm not saying win the Premier League. I don't think no one expects us to this year, Ten Hag, to come in and form a team what was going to get us competing against City and Liverpool. I think that's unrealistic. But I did expect us to formulate a team which would be pushing top 4 a lot more than we've pushed it this year. Whether we're going to do that with the signings we've made, I'm not sure. I'm not overly optimistic about that. I think the manager's the right manager to bring in. What I've seen in pre-season, his philosophies, the way he is, what he expects, I like. You know what I mean? I think he's a good fit for the club and what we need moving forward. I think he will bring in the right players. Is he getting the backing? I'm not 100% sure. I hope he is. I just hope he's not just signing players. It looks like he doesn't want to sign players, should I say, where he's being driven to sign them just to get names in, which we said at the end of last season. We don't want to sign these big names anymore. What's not going to do much for us? I'd rather sign. I've never really heard of this. Is it Sesko who we're on about signing as a centre forward? Be honest, don't know who he is. But if he's a Ten Hag, if Ten Hag's asking for him, and he believes in him, sign the guy. Let's have a look. Let's put our belief in the manager. We could quite easily go and sign someone for 80, 90 million. Big name in the world of sport, and he doesn't do it. He's not the right fit for the club. I don't want to see them signings anymore. I want to see the right fit for the manager and for the squad. Ronaldo situation, it's an hard one. We've all said on the podcast all last year. We was absolutely made up. He come back. He's got look how many goals he scored, and he's nowhere near. Let's be honest, he's nowhere near the player he's been. Nowadays, but he was still our most dangerous player. I would have liked him to have stayed another season to have that option up front as a striker. But I think an unhappy Ronaldo, and a Ronaldo what doesn't want to be there, is going to have a detrimental effect on the squad overall in the changing room, the attitude and the players. Personally, I think now, as it is, he's made his feelings clear. He still wants Champions League football before he retires. He's still ambitious. If it were me, I'd probably be looking at letting him go and trying my best to replace him with a young, hungry striker. I'd say, i.e., this young lad, this Sesko, maybe. Let's have a look at him and see what we've got. Because although Martial's been fantastic in pre-season, and to be fair, he has been fantastic. What I've watched of him, his hold-up play, his movement off the ball, his attitude, it looks like a completely different player. Yeah. But it is pre-season, so we can't get too excited about it. And we've seen from I don't know how many years he's been at the club now, it's very hot and cold. So I don't think we can just rely on having Martial as our main striker. Ronaldo situation, I don't think it's as bad as he's ruined his status at the club like the previous guy said, but I can understand his frustration with it. I'm frustrated. I'm sure everyone's frustrated with it. Maybe it's time to move him on and start looking at a young fresh striker. I can't understand why McNeil didn't get a chance, to be honest, in pre-season. Yeah. I'm a bit. Obviously, he's got a great record in the 23s, and there's a lot of noise about him in and around the 23s. I'm not quite sure why he didn't get a chance to have a look at him. That's one more for me, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I hope that he's going to get a chance in the Cups and the Europa League because, like you said, I think that striking is a very, very peculiar area of the pitch, isn't it? Because you can forgive a lot of rawness in a striker's game as long as they're good at striking the ball. Remember Makeda when he first came in? He just had the instinct to scoring, so he was getting games on that. Yeah. Whereas Welbeck didn't really have that instinct to goal scoring, but he was more persevered with than Makeda was. It's a funny area, but the instinct which McNeil seems to have, you would think, if he has the temperament to handle that step up, but we've not seen that yet. That's the big question, and he's still quite young, so we could see. A comment before I come to you on this, Phil. From Mike Pierre, he says, there's no reason to believe United are still not a reactive club. Should there be a post-start, money will be thrown at transfers 2 months too late again. By the way, greetings from sunny Cyprus. And Richard says, hello from tropical West Gorton. And yeah, we're all in the tropical Northwest here, mate. Don't worry about that. Phil, you're not in tropical Cyprus, but talk to me about, I mean, this is a very big point that's been made as well. I mean, Richard says it there. It's Arnold's and Murtaugh's first big test this window. We are indeed watching them. And we are. It does at least seem to be led by Ten Hag. He seems to be laying down the law. Everything seems to be happening the way that he wants it to happen. Having said that, De Jong is dragging. Ronaldo was still not really completely clear. I think that there's a very strong rumour that he's going to be announcing that he's going to be staying, or there'll be some kind of comment to that effect over the next 48 hours. But I don't know how happy people in the main are going to be with that, because what we can see over the last 4 or 5 weeks is that he's tried not to stay. So yeah, a nice comment before I come to you, Phil. I saw Phil play for Droylsden not long ago. He still had it. So there you go. A nice comment before.
Oh, look at Phil all happy now. Look.
Never lose it, Richard.
So yeah, go on then, Phil. Talk to me about what your assessment of in the main, De Jong and Ronaldo, and do you think that it's something that Ten Hag has led, or do you criticise Arnold and Murtaugh for what they've done?
No, I mean, for me, I pretty much have the same views as Lee. Obviously, the manager's he's had his heart set on signing Frankie de Jong. I think he knows the player really well, obviously from his time at Ajax. He seems like the type of player that I think we would benefit from having in. But if obviously the player's stating that he wants to stay at Barcelona and there's all these other things going on in the background, as Lee said, it's dragged on now for quite some time. And for me, I think there's other players available who we probably could have, put a little bit more energy into trying to pursue, rather than, De Jong, who was never really going to, be able to come without this £16 million payoff getting sorted. So yeah, I think obviously for me now, I'd cut ties with that, and I'd just be looking at, can we get in somebody else who could potentially do a similar job? I think, there was names around earlier on in pre-season. There was Tielemans and Ruben Neves and players like that who could potentially have been available, but obviously we've left it that late now. You're probably going to struggle to get someone like that through the door. But yeah, obviously I think the club will still try and pursue De Jong, because obviously Ten Hag's, really, set on bringing him into the club. So if they can come to some sort of agreement, then great. But for me, I think it's sort of ran its course now, and I would be looking, to maybe try and get someone else in. But the Ronaldo situation, obviously for me, difficult one. Everybody knows my feelings on Ronaldo. He's my favourite player. I absolutely love him, but I feel as though he's not dealt with the whole situation in the best way he could have done. Obviously knew he wasn't going to have Champions League football at the end of last season, so he had all that time to sort of, sort out if he wanted to go and play Champions League football and go somewhere else. I think obviously not going on the pre-season tour and all this sort of, mystery about whether he's going to be staying, going or whatever, hasn't really helped the club, because now we're obviously in limbo with, start of the seasons here, and we've not really got a striker if he leaves. So for me, I would personally, if he wants to go, let him go. Obviously he's got that drive still to play in the Champions League, and that's what he's heart's set on, and you can't really blame him for that. But I just feel as though the way he's dealt with the whole situation, it hasn't been ideal. But yeah, if he obviously does stay, you know what you're going to get from him. He'll score you 15, 20 goals, no problem in the Premier League. But again, it's whether Ten Hag wants to play him in that system. And again, we've touched on, he's not really the player that he used to be. He will still work hard, he'll still press, but he's probably not going to fit the bill for what an ideal centre forward would look like in that system for Ten Hag. But again, he's probably the one player in world football who you could probably, let off with not having to, do stuff, because he'll guarantee you them big moments, and he'll guarantee them goals where you need someone to pop up and get you a goal. But yeah, other than that, obviously we've got Marsh, who's had a good pre-season, but Lee's touched on it as well. They're saying injury prone and blows hot and cold, so you wouldn't really want to hang your hat on him being, the main striker all season. But this Sesko, I mean, I've seen glimpses of him, and he looks, really, really top class from what I've seen. Obviously, seen the game against Liverpool the other week, and he looked brilliant against them. Again, obviously, he's only a young lad. He's going to be raw, but for me, he's got massive potential, and if we can get him through the door, I think that'd, bolster that area of the pitch, and I wouldn't, begrudge him coming into the club, because I think again it adds quality into that, top half of the pitch. There's more competition for places, and with the amount of games that we're going to be playing this year, we're definitely going to need that. So yeah, if we can get him in, that'd be great.
See, the problem I see, just before touching on it too, is a lot of the forward players that we're getting linked with at the moment, and we've been linked with all season. You like to view Anthony's, now we're getting linked with Ziyech, Memphis about the return. They're all wide players. They're not out and out strikers, and I can't get my head around why we're not looking for a proper number 9 instead of keep going for, your wide right, so you can, play as a false 9 or things like that. But for me, we need to be looking at it. I don't know how many's out there, if I'm being honest with you. And that might be the reason we're struggling, because it looks like we've missed out on the ball with quite a few of them. And what's left now are really better than what we've got. But for me, we need to sign an out-and-out striker, not a wide player who can be converted. I'm just wondering whether they're looking at your likes of your Anthony's and your Ziyech's and people like that, thinking, well, can we still convert Rashford as an out-and-out centre forward? But is that going to work? For me, he plays better on the wings or wide than he does as a centre forward. So I think that's where the confusion's coming in at the moment. Yeah.
I think as well, because obviously like Bruno as well last year played in that sort of like false 9 role, and like obviously a lot of people have looked at City and the way they've played for a few years without a proper number 9. I think now, because if you look around world football at this moment in time, there's not that many, if any, world-class number 9s available that you could bring in.
Like the likes of your Haaland and people like that's already gone. What I mean? So there's no one available really, is there?
Yeah, so I think that's why people are having to sort of look at, players who maybe are a false 9 or an inverted winger, or, an out-and-out, player who can play in any positions across the front three, because there's not really anyone who stands out for me at the moment who you could say, right, we need him, he's a proper number 9, he'll get you 25 goals a season. I can't think of anybody who's available.
Well, I know on the last podcast we had, we were still thinking about it on the last podcast, weren't we? And we was even mentioning you like your Tammy Abrahams and people like that. But would you want to bring a Tammy Abraham, or is that a panic buy? Do you know, things like that? It's hard to get your head around, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I definitely agree with you both. A lack of top strikers is not there. Maybe we should have got Phil when he was knocking him in for Droylsden.
Oh.
Chance missed there. We've got Brighton on Sunday. Obviously, I previewed this with Paul Parker on the Monday podcast. They're obviously a team. They're a really good test for Ten Hag in his first game. You know, they've got the profile and budget that we should be dealing with comfortably, but we've seen over the previous seasons that they've always given us a good fight at Old Trafford. They've always played well. They're really good at keeping the ball. And obviously, they battered us down there in one of the worst games that we've ever played in our history at the back end of last season. But they've lost Bissouma, a player who, in the comment section, it's already been suggested we should have been in for, and it's a great shout. Obviously, his ongoing legal issues, I think, is probably why United were a little bit resistant, and Spurs took that gamble, which is up to them. United didn't do that. But his loss from Brighton means that they won't be able to play exactly the same style. Graham Potter's still going to have them trying to dictate the ball and the players as much as they can. At Old Trafford, even before Ronaldo scored that goal, when they had 11 men, they were playing really well, and they had to go down to 10 men for us to really creak home a win. So it's going to be a really good test for Ten Hag in terms of how his philosophy of play is effective against the top coach in the Premier League. It's not like one of the really top teams like Liverpool, which is going to be waiting in the next games. But it is a really good test in the first game. I guess I'll ask your guys' predictions for. I know Keane does the team lineups with you, so what I'll do is I'll ask you to predict your team and then tell me how you think the game's going to go. Phil, I'll come to you first.
So you want what team lineup and?
Yeah, give us your 1 to 11. How you think the formation will go, and then how you think the game will go.
Okay, I think the back four I'll be De Gea. Sorry, goalkeeper De Gea, and then back four Dalot, Maguire, Martinez, and Shaw. I think the midfield. I think the midfield is going to be a difficult one. Obviously, I think Eriksen's done really well in the pre-season games that he's been a part of. But I think first game of the season, he'll probably stick with Fred and McTominay and probably Bruno. And then obviously the front three going off depending on whether obviously Ronaldo's staying. Is Martial going to be fit? I'd say Sancho, Rashford, and I think it'll either be one of the two. If it's Ronaldo, if he's staying, then I think he might start. Obviously, if Martial's fit and Ronaldo's not staying, I think he'll start. If none of them are available, I think it'd be possibly then you'd have to look at, juggling it around and, whether Alanga stays, does he come in and then you put Rashford down the middle, or do you play Bruno as a false nine? I think a lot will depend on obviously what happens and obviously the sort of stuff that'll be said obviously in the next day or two about Ronaldo and who's fit and stuff. But yeah, I think that'll probably be the starting 11 for me if everybody's fit and well.
Okay, and what do you reckon in terms of how the game's going to go? I mean, like I said, Brighton have always done well at Old Trafford in terms of how they've played.
I think I went to the Brighton game last season at Old Trafford and thought we played quite well for a large part of the game. Sort of frustrated us and obviously took a while to break down. But I think we'll have enough to win. I think with it being the first game, I think obviously there'll be a few nerves and obviously you just want to get 3 points in that first game, regardless of performances. But I'm going to go for a 2-0 win. I think Martinez coming in will give us that little bit more aggression at the back, and I think from what I've seen of him, he looks like somebody who's really. He reminds me actually of Gabriel Heinze.
Yeah.
I think he's similar in the sort of respects that he loves getting stuck in. He's technically quite good. He's only quite small, but I think he's got a great leap on him, and I think he'll complement playing with Maguire and possibly Varane at some point really well. So yeah, looking forward to seeing him.
Lee, you're 11, and how you think the team's going to go?
Yeah, but very similar than what Phil what Phil's just chose. Really, I've wrote 3 teams down across to it, and then just before we come on the podcast, I've gone with what I think is the sensible option. So I've gone obviously De Gea in nets. Dalot, as I don't think no one criticised Dalot more than me last season. I thought he was terrible. In pre-season, again, he's looked like he's had a new lease of life. He's looked sharp, completely different player, to be honest. And I hope he makes me eat my word, because what I don't understand with United fans is we rip people that much that we don't want them to do well, and we don't want them to get back to form. Which it's crazy. It's crazy. You know what I mean? Surely we've all got the same ambition that like Maguire last year. He got absolutely a new hole torn in him because, you know. But then when he does have a good game, people don't acknowledge he's had a good game. It's still, he's not good enough. So I'm glad, and I hope to God it proves me wrong, because I want him to be a world-class right back. You know what I mean? And, you know, I'd love to eat my own words about it. So going with Dalot right back.
I'm glad you said that, Lee, by the way. I'm really glad you said that, because that doesn't get said enough, that, you know, everyone's quick to criticise, but we are all meant to be supporting the team and the players. Surely we want them to do well. I'm really glad you said that. Yeah. Go on anyway. Dalot right back.
I think they'll keep Maguire on the. He's been playing on the right, hasn't he, in pre-season? Yeah. He's looked comfortable, and he's, again, like I've just mentioned, for me, he's been one of the players of pre-season. And I did give him quite a lot of criticism myself last year and said he wasn't, you know, he didn't look like he was going to come back to form and be good enough. But again, he's had a great pre-season. You just have to watch his highlight reels. Don't watch the full match, just watch the reels of him on the ball, spraying the ball from centre back. The distribution, what he can do is superb. You know, yeah, he has got his faults and is a little bit slow off the mark. But if we've got another centre back like Martinez, who looks a little bit quicker, a little bit more bullish, a little bit more about him, the type of centre back I love, by the way. You know, they could complement each other well. So and could make up for Maguire's, you know, lack of pace. So I've gone for Martinez on the left at centre back. Because Shaw didn't travel on the last game, so I didn't play. I've gone for Malakia at left back. Really like the look of him. Really like the look of him. Again, he's a young lad, but it looks like he's got the right attitude and he's going to be the right fit for a Ten Hag system and a Ten Hag team. So I've gone for Malakia. Midfield, it's a difficult one. Like I say, it's all dependent on what. It looks like Martial's out, I think, doesn't it? I think it's Eddie saying Martial's a definite for being out now.
I think so, yeah.
So I think going off it was either Bruno was a false 9, like Phil said. That was my first team. But I've gone with what I think he'll play. I think he's going to put Fred in the midfield as a defensive midfield player. He's, again, had a lovely pre-season. Every manager picks him for a reason. And I think he's shown over especially the last half of last season and what he's done in pre-season, that he probably deserves his place to the lads that we've got. So I'd probably put Fred in there. I'd like him to play Eriksen. So I've got Eriksen and Fernandes in that midfield with him. I'm a little worried that could get overrun. But that's what I've gone with. And then up top, I've gone with Sancho on the right. Please keep playing him on the right. He's a right winger. Don't keep converting him over to the left, playing where him and Dalot linked up fantastically well on that right-hand side in pre-season. I'd like to see that relationship flourish, hopefully. Tough one for me. Is it Rashford or Garnacho on the left? I've gone with, I believe he'll play Rashford just because of the experience what he brings. So I put Rashford on the left, and I think he'll bite the bullet and put Cristiano up front.
Yeah, tough. And how do you reckon the game's going to go? I mean, tough, like we said, tough to first test for him against a team like Brighton.
Yeah, it could go either way, mate. I'll be honest with you. The team need time to cement and, you know, to get to. I hope we get to a point where we have a consistent starting 11 instead of swapping and changing and players playing with one player at the side for 1 minute and play. You know what I mean? They don't get that time to gel. I hope to God that over the next, 5 or 6 games we start seeing a familiar starting 11. And hopefully when we do start seeing that, we'll start seeing some relationships being formed and, start playing as a team. So I think it's a toss of the coin. I think it could go either way. I think we've got the players to just about, edge Brighton. So I'll probably go for a 2-1 win.
Yeah. I remember, I don't want to end the podcast on a downer, but you can remember Van Gaal's first pre-season going so fantastically when the football was being played in it was like a 3-4-1-2 or something like that, and we were playing with wing backs. It was amazing. And then we played Swansea on the first game of the season. We played this wing back formation, and it went horribly wrong in the first half. So he was already changing the formation by half time. I don't think we'll see that with Ten Hag, but it's just a reminder that pre-season can go well, and then can then go tits up when the real football starts. Richard predicts a 3-0 win for United. Very, very optimistic. We're going to be up for it. Yeah, I mean, I guess you're going to have a very atmospheric Old Trafford, which you're definitely going to get for a manager's first game for sure. And Mike says he thinks it's going to be easier versus Brighton than we are anticipating. Comfortable 2-0 win with Rashford and Sancho to score. And yeah, I guess that's another thing to sort of put into the factor is the fact that they have lost Bissouma. The midfield's going to have a completely different dynamic. Are they going to be able to? I don't think they've replaced him with an outside signing, at least in terms of midfield. So they're going to have to adapt the way that they play, and United might be able to take advantage of that in the first sort of 45, 60 minutes. It'll be very interesting to see for sure. And yeah, hopefully United are going to win. I'm not making any lineup predictions, Keen. About that. or any score predictions either. I don't do that. I'm too anxious as it is without having people come back at me and say, you got it wrong. I get enough wrong.
Wrong. Wayne, I don't think I've got one right yet, mate, so I wouldn't worry about it. Phil's the one who always gets it right.
Yeah. One last.
I'm going for, so hopefully that can get me off the mark straight away for this season. I'm sure Keane said we was going to actually do like a little competition this year with predicting the scores and stuff, but yeah, we'll just have to see. I'm happy with I think 2-0 sounds about right for me, first game.
Yeah, and Lee went with 2-1 right, so make sure, Keane, if you're watching this, make sure just watch the last couple of minutes and get the scores off the guys. Mike says if people forget Maguire is technically a very good footballer. He can pass and bring the ball for it. Keane says they're going to keep a table for it. That's great. And he's gone for 3-1 United, which is 3 goals, very ambitious. But we have been scoring them in pre-season. By the way, for everyone watching, in the description of the channel today, there's the Fantasy Premier League. So join in there. There's a code in there and the link, so you can just join in there to join in our Talk of the Devils Fantasy Football League. I'm not playing that because I know that I will lose, and there's no point in me putting it in because I refuse to pick City and Liverpool players, which means I'm already destined for lower middle table. I just can't do it. Like people do it, and they want,
When I actually looked at my team the other day, and I was thinking to myself, I'm horrible because I've not actually picked any United players because I'm a bit unsure about who's going to be playing or whatever. And then I looked at my team and I was like, I had Haaland, I had Alexander-Arnold, Salah, and I'm like, oh God. I'm just thinking of the points. I'm obviously a bad supporter by not having any United players.
I think just before we go, I think going off, who you think's going to do well, and I think Sancho could surprise us all this season. Watching pre-season, I think Sancho may be one to watch this season.
Yeah, I agree with that. Actually. Yeah. I agree definitely on that.
And not only that, because I think obviously you got Rashford, and Rashford looked really good in pre-season.
Yeah,
Martial obviously did as well. But Sancho's almost like, depending on what happens with Ronaldo, Sancho almost becomes the main man in that front line if Ronaldo goes, in terms of what's expected of him. So it could be and he did do really well in pre-season. So you could see why expectations are high for him. And yeah, I'm with you, Lee. I hope that he starts from the right because his link-up play from that side has been brilliant. And yeah, we will see. We'll see. If you've enjoyed watching, please give us a subscription and a like on the channel if you haven't already. And feel free to comment in the comment section to tell us what you thought of the podcast. If you're listening back on the audio podcast, please subscribe on the platform you're listening on. And I know that it's a bit more difficult to do on the audio platforms because it's a bit of a ball ache to sort of go and review. But if you can, please do, because it really means a lot to us. I will be back probably on Sunday night for the first review game, the review podcast of the season with Kyle and probably Andrew. And maybe Harry, might be someone else. And I'll be back on Monday morning with Paul Parker to go on to our regular Monday morning podcast. I might even join up with you guys next week because I was meant to be coming on tonight with you too with Keane. So I might do that as well next week with Keane. Hopefully Keane will be well enough to host. I hope I've been a decent enough standing. We will be back next week. Stay well, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And enjoy United this weekend. The football is